Okay, this is Chapter 3 of Principles of Information Security. It's about legal, ethical, and professional issues in information security. Now, I'm definitely not a lawyer, so you're going to have to forgive me on some of this. Okay, you're going to learn a whole bunch of stuff here. Again, I'm not a lawyer. I will touch on a lot of it, but there'll be a lot of it I won't tell you much about. Okay, introduction. It says you must understand the scope of an organization's legal and ethical responsibilities. Well, if you think about that, that is something that changes all the time. The law is always playing catch up. Okay, there's always something new, a new law out for this. What's the newest law in Oklahoma? I guess can't text when you're driving. How about legalizing marijuana? It's in Colorado now, so obviously issues like that would change what an organization has to do. How about ethics? I mean, ethics is a big deal as well. We have a new ethics agreement we require students to sign because there's lots of people who don't understand what is ethical and what is not. Okay, it says to minimize. Oh, this stupid thing. Hold on. Okay, to minimize liabilities and risks. First of all, you understand what the laws are out there, and I could go forever on that. Stay current with laws and regulations. They're always changing. Like I mentioned, we have the new texting law, and watch for new and emerging issues. There's always something new coming out there. Okay. The laws. It says rules that mandate or prohibit certain behavior and are enforced by the state. So we have seatbelt laws, we have a new texting law, we have all kinds of laws like that, and they are mandated by the state. There's also federal laws. Now ethics, it says regulate and define society acceptable behavior. So is it ethical to steal someone's food? It might not be a law against it, but it would be ethically wrong to do that. How about downloading music off the internet? Is that wrong? Well, possibly depending on what state you're in, but ethically it's wrong. Okay. Now, cultural morals. It says fixed moral attitudes or customs of a particular group. Here's some area that varies greatly. Okay, we have Americans, we have Europeans, we have Muslims. I mean, that's a real big issue there. Okay, a prior student of mine, a good friend, Jeffrey, is a Muslim. No problem with Muslims. He came to me one day before class and said, hey, it's whatever time of the year, I don't remember the name he told me. He says, is there a place where I could pray on campus? And I said, yes. So I found him a location to do that. So that is something that the Muslim culture does that the Americans do not. So it really depends, where you're from. What does that particular group do? It says laws carry authority over the governing authority. Ethics do not. Okay. All right, let's move on. Now, liability. Okay, it says the legal obligation of an entity extending beyond criminal or contract law includes the legal obligation to make restitution. So, what was that? A few years ago, some lady spilt coffee on herself in McDonald's and sued McDonald's because the coffee was hot. Well, I'm sorry to tell you, if you're buying coffee, what do? Expect it to be cold? But were they liable for that? I think they actually ended up paying her money. Okay, restitution is paying. So she spilled coffee on herself. She burned herself. Didn't have a clue it was going to be hot. I don't know what the deal was, but they had to pay restitution to her. Now, due care is the legal standard requiring a prudent organization to act legally and ethically and know the consequences of actions. So, at Rose State, you were to accept credit cards. Okay, are we using due care to ensure the credit card processing system will not get broken into? And actually, we are. Okay. Now, due diligence, the legal standard requiring a prudent organization to maintain the standards of due care and ensure that they are effective. Now, what happens, if our credit cards get broken into? We would have to prove that we took due diligence and did our best to protect them. So, just different aspects there. Okay. Now, jurisdiction. Okay, it says their right to hear. You'll always hear it in the news. Do they have jurisdiction? I know there's something about spam, for instance. It's illegal to send spam in California, but not in other states. So you really get into it there when you think about outside the United States. when I was over in Saudi Arabia, they don't care about copyright laws. So it's not an issue there. So if you wanted to prosecute somebody for breaking copyrights, obviously you wouldn't do it there. So the jurisdiction is the court's right to hear it. And you'll see that a lot, it'll be where the crime was committed. So they might bring them back to the place, the state the crime was committed, to prosecute them. And long arm, this is applications of laws to those residing outside the court's normal jurisdiction, usually granted when a person acts illegally within a jurisdiction. So in other words, they can go get them. And that's when the person breaks the law and leaves. Well, we could extradite them, or we could bring them back here to face whatever. Okay. Policies versus laws. Policies tell us what to do. We have a password policy. We have a computer usage policy. We have an whatever policy. Okay. It says to specify acceptable and unacceptable behavior. Okay. We have a drug policy on campus. We have a no alcohol policy. We have no smoking policy on campus. Okay. They function as our laws here. But does that mean you're going to go to jail? Okay, they must be crafted and implemented with care to ensure they are complete. And I'll tell you, complete's the killer there. Oh, this is years ago now. We had a drug enforcement or drug use, whatever. I think it was alcohol. It's either alcohol or drug policy, whatever. I think it was the drug policy on campus. It was a couple paragraphs long. Well, it got rewritten. And it got rewritten into this 20-page document. And it was funny because when they changed it, they had to publish the change. Well, that change was stuck on the window to our office for probably 5 years because no one knew how long the policy update had to be visible. That was kind of scary. It says difference between policies and laws. Ignorance of a policy is an acceptable defense. You never told me I couldn't do drugs at work. Hence the publicizing of that updated drug policy. Okay, criteria for enforcement. Dissemination. We need to tell them about it. We have a new policy on, let's go back to the drug. We have a new policy on the drugs on campus. So we had to disseminate or distribute it. Reading. The reading's a tough one. Did you make them read it? Here at Rose State, we require new employees to do sexual harassment training and all this other stuff so that we know they read it, they know they comprehended it, and then they also agree to it. So we're pretty much getting all this done if you get hired here. Who would Virginia just had to do these the other day. She had to take the sexual harassment training. It was distributed to her. She had to read it. She had to understand it. She had to pass some tests. She had to agree to it. And it's enforced across campus wide. All right. Different types of laws. Again, I'm definitely not a lawyer, so we're going to barely touch on some of this stuff. Civil, it says national or state laws. It says relationships between organizations and people. Again, this is not my area of expertise. Criminal law, activities conduct harmful to society. Okay. It says actively enforce. We have private. That's family, commercial law. I had something to do with that when it came to my grandfather's will. When he died, he left money in a trust. So that would be private because it's a family matter. Then public. It says regulates structure, administration of government agencies and relationships with citizens. All right. Okay, relevant U.S. laws. It says the United States has been a leader in the development and implementation of information security legislation, which is good. A lot of places don't really care. I'm currently reading a book by Brian Krebs, Spam. I can't think of the title. It's begins with Spam, but it's really, really good. He's talking about all the different areas where spam comes from and how there's not a lot of laws helping with that. So information security legislation contributes to a more reliable business environment and a stable economy. Yeah, if we have laws that limit or tell us how we can do certain things or how to protect our information, that really helps. It says the U.S. has demonstrated understanding of the importance of securing information and has specified penalties of individuals. I mean, just look what happened with Edward Snowden. He's not even back in the United States yet. There's actually a movie based on him. It's called Citizen 4, by the way. I haven't watched it yet, but it is out there. Okay, computer crime laws. We have the Fraud and Abuse Act. It's been out there for quite a while, since '86. It says cornerstone of many computer-related federal laws. Okay, that we have the National Information Infrastructure Protection Act. Yay! It says modified several sections of the previous act and increased the penalties of certain crimes. Okay, and if you think about it, if I was to rob a bank at gunpoint, or if I was to rob the bank via my computer, I could basically get the same amount of money from both. But which way would I get in more trouble? Okay, white collar crimes, in other words, those via computer are considered less. They're not quite as bad. Okay. All right. So it says severity of penalties was judged on the value of the information for purposes of commercial advantage, private gain, so on and so forth. Okay. The Patriot Act's been out there, like I said, 2001. I think they updated it recently. It says provides law enforcement agencies with broader latitude to combat terrorism. Yay. Okay. Then we have the improvement, and there's the update to it, and Reauthorization Act made permanent 14 of the 16 expanded powers. So in other words, they're no longer going to expire. Computer Security Act of '87. This is one of the first attempts to protect federal computer systems by establishing minimum acceptable security practices, which is good. And if you don't follow these, you can also get in trouble. Okay, privacy. This is one of the hottest topics. The rights of individuals or groups to protect themselves and personal information from unauthorized access. One that I always thought is crazy. My son Micah turned 18 a few years ago, 6 years ago, I guess now. He was actually living in Arizona at the time. He called me and he's like, "Hey Dad, I'm sick. I need to go to the hospital. Or at least go see a doctor." So I tried calling to get him an appointment. I couldn't do it because he was 18. So I called him back and I said, "Mike, I can't do it. Here's the number to the insurance company. Call them." It was TRICARE at the time. I said, "Call them and make your own appointment. I cannot do it for you." And he was like, "What do you mean you can't do it for me? I'm sick. Just help me." I can't. Because he's now over 18, I was not able to help him. And I was not able to get him a doctor's appointment. Wasn't a fun time, but he finally got it taken care of. Okay. So privacy, it's weird. Okay. It says the right of individuals or groups to protect themselves and personal information from unauthorized access. Okay, makes sense there. Ability to aggregate data from multiple sources allows creation of information databases previously impossible. If you were here when Kevin Mitnick came here years ago, none of you were probably here at that point, but he came here and he took a volunteer from the audience and had them give him his social security number. Then he showed with just one search the amount of information that was able to be found just based on that one social security number. It's pretty amazing how all that's aggregated together. Okay, it says the number of statutes addressing the individual's right to privacy has grown. There's lots of more out there. Okay, and here we go. There's a web tool out there, Maltego and CIT also. We'll actually be looking at those in the other classes. You can actually go and kind of find a lot of information about people. Like it says, your purchasing habits, browsing habits. I mean, heck, go look at Amazon. You ever buy anything on Amazon? Go back and log in the next couple days later. Hey, you interested in this? They give you other things that are related to what you already purchased. Okay, U.S. regulations. There's privacy of consumer information or customer information section. There's the Privacy Act. There's Electronic Communications Act. There's HIPAA. That's our whole, what you call it there? Healthcare. That's our healthcare stuff there, okay? Then we have the Graham-Leach Act, 1999, and they do talk about some of these in here. Identity theft happens to a lot of people. It actually happened to me this year. 2004. I went to file my 2014 taxes and could not because somebody had already done it. Okay, so the FTC helps over that. There's a lot of stuff going on in that area. I actually just gave like a 20-minute presentation on identity theft the other day. It's up under the Cybersecurity Club. It's on my YouTube channel too under Cybersecurity Club. But it says someone suspects identity theft. Report to one of the three credit reporting agencies. Order credit reports. Contact the FTC. All that stuff. So you need to do all that. Okay, export and espionage laws. The Economic Espionage Act of 1996. Don't know much about that one. Sorry about that. Security and Freedom through Encryption Act. Encryption's awesome. There's a book out there called Crypto, if you haven't read it, which talks about this in great gory detail. And it's really pretty cool. And there's a big, actually majority of the book talks about the rights to sell encryption. The government, for the longest time, did not want us to encrypt data that they couldn't decrypt. So, kind of cool. You might want to read that if you get a chance. You definitely need to read it for the cryptography course. All right. So, yeah, they go on there. And that's distribution of this cryptography only to U.S. and Canada. Copyright laws. Okay. Intellectual property as recognized as a protected asset of the United States. Okay. With proper knowledge. This I kind of mentioned this earlier. For instance, music, movies, stuff like that. Certain countries like Saudi Arabia don't care about copyright. United States does. It belongs to somebody else. You need to pay them for it. Actually, I think, was it Taylor Swift who had a big issue with the new Apple Music and how they weren't going to pay artists a royalty for any of the songs that were listened to during the trial period. But her point was, they're still listening to my songs. They're on a trial period with Apple, but they're not on a trial period with her. So she ended up getting it where now they do get paid for that. Okay. Financial, Sarbanes-Oxley's 2002. It says affects the executive management or policy trading corporations and public accounting firms. In other words, how do you handle your finances? Okay. Prove the reliability of financial reporting. Okay. Freedom of Information Act. For instance, Rose State's a public school. You could actually file a Freedom of Information Act to get any kind of document from Rose State. It gives you the ability to get access to records, federal records. Okay. Here it is, the Freedom of Access requests. Quite a few were received. Okay. And look at the backlog over there. 71,000 backlog in 2012. That's crazy. Actually, but look how many were requested. 651,000 were requested in 2012. That's just a lot. Okay. And, let's go back to one more time. If you look under 2008 to 2009, they did catch up there a whole bunch. The backlog dropped from 130,000 to 75,000. All right, PCI compliance, payment card industry. Anytime you accept credit card data, you must pass what's called a PCI compliance check. We do here at Rose State. I used to manage the network for some gyms around town, and I had to pass the PCI compliance checks. Basically, it was saying, do you do your best to protect the system? Do you protect the data? It's like there was a question there. If you have a server that stores credit card data, the server must be behind two doors with two different keys. It's just one of the things we had to maintain. It was just pretty crazy. But yeah, payment card information. Okay. State and local says federal computer laws are mainly written specifically for federal systems. Okay. Information security professionals are responsible for understanding state regulations. Again, if you move jobs, obviously that'd be tough to keep up with. Okay. All right. International. Here's where the big issue is. There's not a lot that goes that way. We talk about it a little bit in secure e-commerce called Battle of the Forms. For a while there, Rose State student email was actually hosted outside of this country. That was tough to get it done because their laws were different than ours. This is when organizations do business on the internet, they do business globally. You could very easily be buying something. Even if you buy it off Amazon, you could be buying something from China or from wherever. You must be sensitive to the laws and the ethics. Ethics, let's talk more about that here for a second. When I went over to Saudi Arabia during, years ago, during the Persian Gulf War and even before then, you're not allowed to have Fords. The Ford vehicle or Pepsi products in Saudi Arabia. This was back then. I don't know if it's the same now. But the stairs. You know, I was over there with AWACS, and they have these trucks, these Ford trucks that are used for the stairs for the plane. You know, they drive the stairs up to the plane so you can get on and off the plane. Well, they're only made by Ford. So what they ended up doing was they had to take the trucks into a hangar. They had to grind off everything that said Ford. I mean, literally everything. Even the steering wheel, the plastic Ford logo in the middle of the steering wheel, yeah, that was taken off as well. But they had to totally remove everything that said the word Ford. It was pretty crazy. Okay, political complexities, relationships among nations. I mean, heck, look what's going on right now. The new Iranian nuclear issue there. So there's just lots going on. It says international laws are important, but are limited in their enforceability because they're international. Okay. Here we go. We have the Council of Europe Convention on Cybercrime. It says created an international task force to oversee internet security functions for standardized international technology laws. In other words, they're trying to make things work nationwide, or I guess globally, just not there yet. Feel free to read about it more in the book if you want more information. All right. Agreement of trade-related aspects of intellectual property. We have the World Trade the World Trade Organization created it. The first significant international effort to protect intellectual properties. I don't know, again, much about this because a lot of countries don't really care about it, but obviously something's on the way. Okay. The agreement of trade-related aspects of intellectual property. This is 5 issues. Here we go. Application of basic principles for trading system and international intellectual property. Whew, that's tough. Given adequate protection for intellectual property, enforcement of the rights, settling intellectual property disputes, and transitional agreements when the new system is being introduced. So, get a lot of new stuff. Sorry, I don't know much more about this one. Refer to your textbook on that. The Digital Millennium Copyright Act. I don't remember exactly when this came into play, but it's been a while now. This is about the digital aspect of copywriting. Like they're talking about there, the circumventing of protection and countermeasures. I think there's some, if you rent some movies, they'll have that warning on there about the Digital Millennium Copyright Act. Okay, it says manufacture and trafficking of devices used to circumvent is illegal. Okay. But it says excludes ISPs from some copyright infringement. You know, that's something that's important. Okay. I used to run an ISP. What if somebody was getting internet through me and was downloading music illegally? Would I be responsible? So that's what this is taking now and not, thank God. Okay. Ethics. It says many professional disciplines have ethics rules governing the ethical behavior. I don't know which project you'll have to do for whoever class you take, but CISSP, for instance, has a very detailed canon of ethics. Not all of them do. Most of them do, though. Okay, IT and IT security does not have binding codes of ethics, but they're starting to get there. Okay, professional organizations, associations, like I mentioned, CISSP does, CompTIA does, Cisco does, and even Microsoft does have somewhat. Okay? The 10 Commandments, here we go. Thou shalt not use a computer to harm other people. Thou shalt not interfere with people's computer work. Thou shalt not snoop around in somebody else's files. Thou shalt not use a computer to steal. Alright, you can read the rest of those. Okay, ethical differences across cultures. Cultural differences create difficulty in determining what is and what's not ethical. Like I said, some places don't care about copyright. Okay, it says they arise when one nationality's ethical behaviors conflicts with others. Okay, scenarios like illicit use, corporate resources, software licensing. Those are different in different cultures. All right. Here we go. The international piracy rates. Look at those. In millions of dollars. So the U.S. Actually, that's probably the highest. Legal sales 41. Piracy rate 19%. Okay, now let's get down to, let's see. Do they have Saudi Arabia? They don't have Saudi Arabia on there. But look, we have the lowest piracy rate. Look at Indonesia and China. 77%. Isn't that crazy? That's a lot of piracy going on over there. Okay, ethics and education. It says education is an overriding factor in leveling ethical perceptions within a small population. Employees must be trained and kept aware of the expected behavior of an ethical employee. What is an ethical employee? By working at Rose State, what does that mean? Should I be using my computer to commit crimes? No, I should not. Should I be using my computer to download music? No, I should not. That kind of stuff. Okay. Proper ethics training is vital to create informed and well-prepared system users. Yes. Okay, what should you be doing? Should you be on Facebook all day long? Maybe. I don't know. Okay, here's some 3 general causes of unethical. We have ignorance and I didn't know about it. It was an accident. I clicked on the link and it appeared. Or the intent. Okay, so maybe I meant to do that. So those are the 3 general areas. Okay, deterrence, best method. Could be our policies, could be controls. Maybe we could block websites, stuff like that. Okay. We had some secretaries that worked here years ago. They're no longer here. But they literally did MySpace at that time all day long at work. So what I did is I got permission. I went in and edited their host file. So whenever they typed in MySpace, it went to the Rose State website. It's amazing. They could no longer do MySpace at work, and they didn't complain to anybody. So it was kind of funny. Okay. So technical controls, I put those in place. Okay. Laws and policies. Here's mainly why people agree with them. Fear of penalty. Apprehension, probability of being apprehended, probability of a penalty being applied, or maybe you're going to lose your job. Okay? Look at that. Reserved parking for Dr. Whitman. The violators would be shot. Okay, yeah, that's probably not the correct way. Apprehension, your car could be ticketed. Application, someone's going to shoot you. Probably not. I would hope not. Okay? Okay. Okay, code of ethics. As many organizations have established code of ethics. Again, I think that's where the assignment might be for this class. Okay, they can have a positive effect. As many employers do not encourage joining professional organizations, but like the ACM, the IEEE, those are all good ones. But when you start to get your certifications, you'll see that a lot of them do have code of ethics that come with them. Responsibility of security professionals is to act ethically and according to the policies of the employer. Just because you work in IT and have access to the mail server, does that mean you should read everybody's mail? No, it does not. All right, here's some of that. Okay, ACM, I mentioned that one. Okay, they have the ethics of security professionals. There's the ISACA, ISSA, there's ISC squared, that's the CISSP, there's SANS. So there's a lot of different areas or different organizations that have ethics. Okay. Okay, ACM, Association of Computer and Machinery, probably the first, like I said, the words first educational and scientific computer community. I probably need to see about getting in a student chapter here on campus because it's really, really good. Okay, there it talks about their ethics. Reference to protecting information confidentiality, causing no harm, protecting privacy, and so on and so forth. Okay, ISC squared, that's the CISSP people. Okay. Designed to, let's see, well, they don't tell about it. There's Code of Ethics, focuses on 4 mandatory canons. They don't tell you what they are, okay? I think they mentioned them over here a little bit. Do they mention them over here? No, they don't. You have to go read it on their website. Actually, it might be in your book. Okay. SANS, another large organization, System Administration Network and Security Institute. They have a very broad or very detailed set of ethics as well. They also work with the global GIAC as well. Okay, ISACA, this is formerly ISAACA, says that's what they were originally. A professional associated with folks on auditing, control, and security. Again, they have their ethics as well. Okay, ISSA, and I actually went to a conference last year that was put on by them. They have ethics that was similar to other places. But again, they enforce it as well. Okay, DHS, Department of Homeland Security. There's one of the ones that helped us or kind of certified us with our CAE2Y. 5 directorates. Okay, we have the CERT is there for reporting phishing. I report it to them. Secret Service is, in addition to protecting services, is charged with safeguarding the nation's financial institutions. If someone was caught counterfeiting, the Secret Service would get involved in that. Okay. Secret Service Operation Firewall. Yay! Isn't that a pretty picture? Okay. Okay. FBI. A lot of you have seen the FBI. We actually had a lot of people that actually came to here that were working for the FBI. Okay. The InfoGuard program is one of the biggest deals. We also need to see about getting a chapter here on campus for InfoGuard. We need to get ACM and InfoGuard. Really, really good organization. What InfoGuard is, think of it as a direct channel to the FBI. So if there's something going on, the FBI could contact the local chapter directly and disseminate the information through there. Anyway, do we know anybody on there? No, don't know anybody on there. Alright. NSA, National Security Agency, or no such agency as it's known as sometimes. Says the major is the nation's cryptographic organization. You're going to read crypto. There's a lot of information about NSA in there. Okay. Has the Information Assurance Directorate. A lot of stuff going on in there. Oh, and they're also one of the ones that did our CAE2Y certification. All right. Talked about a bunch of stuff. Again, sorry I'm not real big on the ethic or on the law, legal, whatever the legal area, but hopefully I covered some of it for you.